Have you ever noticed how charged our political conversations feel lately? It's like sometimes we're often less in a real dialogue and more in a kind of battle. This intense environment brings us to a really significant and profoundly tragic event. It's drawn our attention to a figure who, well, for better or worse, sparked a lot of conversation and
Right.
sometimes, a lot of contention. Charlie Kirk. He was a truly prominent conservative political activist, a big media figure here in the U.S. Now, the shocking news that really frames this deep dive is this. On September 10th, 2025, Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. It happened at a Turning Point USA event at Utah Valley University while he was actually speaking. Before we go any further at all, let me be absolutely clear. We unequivocally condemn violence in political discourse.
Slow ways.
This exploration of our sources, it's going to help us understand who Charlie Kirk was, the specific nature of his public style, his cultural impact, and, the broader questions his career and his tragic death raise about the state of political engagement today. But always, always with that foundational condemnation of political violence firmly in mind. So who was Charlie Kirk? Well, he burst onto the scene in a really big way. He co-founded Turning Point USA back in 2012, and he was remarkably young at the time.
Yeah, very young.
It quickly became this powerful platform, right? Designed to mobilize conservative youth, particularly on college campuses. Beyond that, he hosted The Charlie Kirk Show, a popular talk show podcast program.
Mm-hmm.
Our sources really highlight that he was known for taking these very strong positions on what we often call culture war issues.
War.
We're talking about things like free speech, sharp criticism of, quote, woke ideology,
Right.
unwavering support for conservative values, and deeply integrating Christian themes into politics. He really carved out a specific niche.
Yeah.
And regarding that unacceptable act of violence that took his life, look, no matter how controversial or maybe how combative someone's rhetoric is, murder is never, ever a justified response.
Never.
Our sources stress this crucial point because violence against political opponents, it just undermines everything a society claims to stand for.
Everything. Things like free speech, debate, persuasion,
Yeah,
basic human dignity.
exactly. It literally collapses the space for dialogue and just replaces it with fear. Even if you saw Kirk's work as, say, harmful or misleading, the ethical response is always through argument, organizing, counterspeech.
Or structural change, maybe.
Right. Structural change, never violence. When violence enters the picture, it tragically shifts the focus away from the ideas being debated.
Yeah, it often creates martyrs, doesn't it?
It
And just deepens polarization.
does. Ideas, no matter how troubling you might find them, must be met with ideas. Violence against individuals, even opponents, is pure injustice. His death, in this context, it isn't just a personal tragedy, it's a profound civic one. For all of us.
Exactly. And this isn't just about Charlie Kirk specifically. It raises a really fundamental question for any healthy society.
Right.
How do we protect the principle that people should be free to advocate fiercely for their beliefs without living in fear of assassination? It's a challenge to the very foundation of how we engage with each other democratically.
Absolutely. And that leads us to a really fascinating aspect of this deep dive, how Charlie Kirk actually engaged in the public square. You might wonder, could you truly reason with someone like him? In a traditional sense, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Our sources describe his public style as one of, well, undeniable confrontation. He genuinely seemed to thrive in formats where theatrics often outweighed nuance.
Right, like those high-energy campus debates.
Exactly, or the rapid-fire live streams, the impassioned podcast rants. He was well known for those gotcha moments.
Oh, yeah.
Where he'd corner a questioner, often with mockery or dismissal, and score big points with his base.
Definitely.
His strength wasn't really in patient listening or slow, deliberate reasoning. It was in performative confrontation.
And what's striking there, I think, is how his approach effectively kind of weaponized dialogue as performance, which in the end diminishes the very sincerity of dialogue itself, doesn't
It
it?
really does.
He wasn't there to meet you as an equal partner in some shared search for truth. His role felt much more akin to a gladiator in an arena, where the crowd, not genuine understanding, decided who won.
That gladiator analogy feels spot on. Kirk positioned himself as a champion for truth, capital T truth maybe, whether it was free speech or Christian values or conservative principles.
Mm-hmm.
But our sources highlight a crucial distinction here. Unlike a philosopher, maybe, who seeks truth even if it challenges their own side.
Right.
Kirk, much like a classical sophist, primarily aimed to defend his viewpoint, convincingly.
Yeah, winning the argument seemed key.
Exactly. He often prioritized winning the argument, mobilizing his base over maybe critical self-reflection. This made debate not really a tool for inquiry, but a brand, a business model for him and for Turning Point USA. Built around the spectacle of, well, owning the libs, as the phrase goes. When we look at his methods of persuasion, through the classical lens of logos, reason, pathos, emotion, and ethos, credibility, our sources reveal a pretty clear pattern. Kirk's logos, his reason, often involve selective statistics. And those sort of facts don't care about your feelings arguments, but often framed to affirm existing views rather than challenge them.
Right, reinforcing biases, maybe?
His pathos, the emotion, heavily leveraged culture war feelings like fear of cultural decline, anger at perceived elites, pride in tradition.
And that really connected, didn't it? Especially with young conservatives.
It did. And his ethos, his credibility, it came not from deep scholarship, but from his charisma, the repetition of talking points.
And positioning himself, yeah.
And positioning himself as this sort of truth teller against the establishment.
So essentially strong on emotion, strong on the persona.
Yeah, with reason often serving a more instrumental rather than investigative role.
It's a powerful combination, though, for mobilization. You can't deny that. And you see different expressions of this approach. Think about someone like Ben Shapiro, for example. He's also a master of performance, but his leans more into that rapid-fire, sometimes selective logic as a kind of intellectual theater.
Right.
Kirk, on the other hand, seemed more about the emotional urgency, that direct audience connection. Both, as our sources suggest, are really more advocates than philosophers.
Less focused on asking, what if we're wrong?
Exactly. More focused on fortifying their side's arguments.
So, given this this combative style, what was his actual impact? Were his debates genuinely educational? Were they primarily entertainment? Or some blend of both?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Our sources very aptly describe his approach as edutainment. That's the term they use.
Edutainment. I like that.
Yeah. He presented facts, crime statistics, constitutional arguments, religious principles, in a way that felt like instruction, almost like he was arming his followers with intellectual ammunition.
Right, giving them talking points.
Exactly. But underneath that educational veneer was this undeniable entertainment core, the rhythm of his events, the call and response with the crowd. It often resembled a comedy roast or even like a WW promo more than a thoughtful seminar. The net effect, according to our sources, was that his audience wasn't truly learning how to think critically.
They were learning how to argue like Kirk.
Precisely. Adopting his selective reasoning and that sharp, confident delivery. And look, it's very fair to say, based on the sources, that Kirk deepened divides rather than bridged them.
It seems clear.
He served as this powerful voice of reinforcement for conservatives, validating their viewpoints, absolutely. But for liberals, he was often seen as, well, a bad faith actor, mocking genuine questions which only hardened their distrust. Moderates rarely found him persuasive, it seems, as his style left very little room for nuance or common ground.
No middle ground there.
His entire brand, in fact, thrived on polarization. Turning Point USA's fundraising, media attention, viral reach, it all depended on the spectacle of owning the libs.
So he didn't just reflect the cultural divide.
No, he monetized it, amplified it. He weaponized certainty, rewarded division, and largely avoided any gray zones. His impact really was to widen divides, not heal them.
That's a critical point, though. He undeniably made conservatism feel young and relevant to a key demographic. You have to acknowledge that.
True.
But in doing so, he seemed to deepen existing fissures rather than trying to bridge them. What does this tell us about the bigger picture?
Exactly. Our sources are very clear on this. Kirk's debates were, quote, educational in content, entertainment in form, and polarizing in effect.
A neat summary.
He wasn't building bridges, he was fortifying walls for his side.
And that naturally prompted others to build their own defenses, right?
Sure. So, thinking of this, you might ask, is the public square better or worse off without his voice? It feels like it could be both, couldn't it? On one hand, you could argue we're potentially better off. He was a polarizing figure. His style rewarded division, mockery, rhetorical combat above, genuine dialogue. His influence certainly normalized adversarial politics as entertainment, which just fuels tribalism. Without him, maybe some of that particular fuel for polarization might dissipate, but it's not that simple, is it? Figures like Kirk, they're products of a broader ecosystem.
Exactly. If it wasn't him, someone else might and likely would fill a similar role.
Yeah. Removing one person doesn't remove the cultural demand for spectacle-driven politics.
So while his absence could reduce one specific vector of division, maybe.
Yeah.
It doesn't fix the underlying problem. And that's why our sources really emphasize that the root issue is structural. It's not purely individual. Kirk was certainly the supply. He expertly packaged conservative talking points into these viral, combative, entertaining formats. He performed certainty like a pro.
He really did.
But there was a clear audience demand. His followers wanted clarity, community, someone who could own the libs in spaces where they often felt outnumbered or unheard.
They were responding to very real needs, right? Identity needs, emotional needs, entertainment needs. And if we only blame Kirk, we risk ignoring the larger cultural soil that produced him. Things like media incentives driven by outrage-fueled algorithms,
The clicks.
educational gaps contributing to a lack of critical thinking, and just broad cultural divides born from anxieties about rapid change.
It's a feedback loop, isn't it, between audience demand and media supply.
Absolutely. Which truly made someone like him almost inevitable, perhaps. So, if engaging directly with figures like this often feels, well, counterproductive, how do you even begin to combat this kind of politics? It feels like a real paradox sometimes.
It does.
Our sources explain that engagement often is counterproductive because figures like Kirk thrive on conflict, and their audiences frequently interpret any engagement as validation.
Right, it just gives them oxygen.
And the medium itself, with debate treated as entertainment, is tilted heavily towards spectacle, not genuine truth-seeking.
It's not exactly a new problem either, is it? History offers some potent lessons here. Think of Socrates. He didn't chase the sophists onto their stages to try and outshout them.
No.
He modeled a completely different kind of dialogue, patient, probing, focused on first principles.
Or consider the civil rights leader.
Yes. Rather than endlessly debating segregationists on their terms, they created these visible countercultures through churches, marches, media that embodied their truth.
They didn't win by out-arguing in the established arena.
No, they shifted the battleground.
That's the key phrase. Shifting the battleground. Don't fight on their stage. Campus Q&As, viral clips, public debates, that's their arena. Even strong arguments there can easily be edited into gotcha reels that benefit them.
You lose control of the narrative.
Exactly. Instead, the strategy, according to our sources, is to build parallel spaces. Think of podcasts like this one, community groups, classrooms, local organizing efforts.
Places where nuance can actually thrive.
Right, where you can explore truth without the distortion of spectacle. It means fostering counterspeech without the need for performance, responding in ways that truly inform the curious, rather than just trying to defeat the other side.
So using things like fact-checking platforms.
Thoughtful essays, long-form discussions where their combative style doesn't dominate. The goal shifts from just winning to equipping audiences with tools of discernment. And crucially, we have to address the demand, not just the supply.
That's harder.
It is. If Kirk was genuinely responding to anxieties about belonging or cultural loss, then simply mocking his followers will only deepen their loyalty.
Right, backfires.
Addressing those underlying concerns, even if we reject his specific answers, is probably the only way to soften the demand for figures like him. It's definitely a long game, though.
Absolutely. In the short term, spectacle often wins the day.
But over the long term, cultures shift when education, media literacy, and alternative role models slowly change what people expect from political voices.
So constructive strategies mean building those parallel platforms.
Shifting incentives to reward slow reasoning over viral combat.
Talking past the loudest polarizers to reach maybe the movable middle.
And consistently modeling integrity in our own discourse. That's key, too.
You really can't win by out-arguing a sophist in their arena. It's almost impossible. If you step onto their stage, you're playing their game by their rules.
Yeah.
The only way out seems to be changing the game entirely to make sincerity, depth, complexity more appealing and ultimately more valued than just spectacle.
Well,
as the saying goes, don't fight fire with fire, fight it with gardens. Cultivate something different.
circling back then to the tragic event that began our deep dive. It seems possible to hold two very important truths here at the same time. Ethically, his assassination was absolutely wrong. Full stop.
Unequivocally.
Violence against political figures, even the most polarizing ones, truly undermines democracy. It damages the social fabric. Nothing about Kirk's rhetoric justifies that horrific act.
I think that.
But culturally, was it, in a broader sense, truly surprising?
That's a harder question.
Perhaps less so. Kirk was a highly polarizing figure whose very public role was often to provoke, to rally people within these deeply divided cultural spaces. And the U.S. is experiencing rising political violence with a growing, disturbing tolerance for seeing opponents as enemies rather than just fellow citizens.
It's a worrying trend.
Assassinations, while thankfully still rare, do tend to emerge when rhetoric in society normalizes seeing people as existential threats.
Indeed. In that grim sense, his assassination was tragic, yes, but maybe not entirely shocking from a cultural standpoint. It's almost a logical, if horrifying, endpoint of a culture where anger and division are constantly escalated. For Kirk's fans, mourning his death is completely natural. It is a human tragedy.
Of course.
But grief doesn't need to blind people to the environment that created the hostility in the first place. His death could be a mirror moment, as the sources put it.
A mirror moment.
Yeah. Many supporters say the country is broken, right?
Yeah.
But our sources point out that they also often participate in the very cycle of division, attending rallies to own the libs, sharing those inflammatory clips, cheering the spectacle. It's an opportunity for collective reflection. Do we really want politics to be a battleground where words so easily escalate into violence?
That's a crucial question for all of us, isn't it? This deep dive really calls for us to be more mindful consumers of politics. It invites you, the listener, to ask yourself, am I supporting someone who brings clarity or someone who thrives on outrage? Am I amplifying a voice that genuinely tries to build bridges or one that primarily profits from division? Am I learning how to think critically or am I just learning how to cheer for my side?
These are hard questions.
They are. And this isn't about silencing one ideology. It's about demanding higher quality, more thoughtful voices across the entire spectrum. The real danger now is a cycle of retribution doubling down in anger, framing Kirk as a martyr, using his death to justify even more hostility.
Yeah, that's the risk.
The healthier path, our sources suggest, is to recognize that his life ended in violence partly because the political arena itself has become too toxic.
And that feeding it further only guarantees more of the same down the road. His death can be both mourned as a profound loss, which it is, and recognized as a potent wake-up call. Not to glorify revenge or escalate the conflict, but to seriously rethink how much energy we as a society pour into polarization. The real honor to his memory, perhaps, if we choose to seek it, would be to begin to break the machine of division, not keep running it hotter and hotter.
Wow. What a complex, deep dive into the life, the impact, and the tragic end of Charlie Kirk, and the larger currents shaping our political conversations today. We've explored how a combative style can certainly build a significant platform,
No doubt about that.
but also how it feeds a cycle of division that, in this instance, proved utterly catastrophic. The central lesson from our sources seems pretty clear. You can't really out-argue a sophist in their chosen arena. The only way to truly shift the landscape is to change the game itself, by valuing sincerity, depth, genuine understanding over mere spectacle. So as you reflect on all of this, maybe consider your own role. In a world where political spectacle so often outshines genuine dialogue, how will you choose to consume and contribute to the political conversation? Will you seek out the gladiatorial arena? Or will you maybe invest in cultivating those quieter, more thoughtful gardens of truth and understanding? That's definitely a lot to mull over. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.